dear viewers, welcome back from the breather. Welcome back to Payare Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam ki Pyari Batain. And we are connected through the platform of Geo Islam. Now, if we see before the break, we have discussed a number of things. We have discussed about the concept of ihsan, which is, to be continued in some sort of way, which we were talking about the parts of ihsan, the components of ihsan, and what it means in qitla, فَأَحْسِنُوا الْقِتْلَ. Now, let's get back. Now, if we see the components of ihsan which I talked about. Now, the second component of ihsan, that is which we call, and of course, if we do ihsan, that is a very big part, because inna Allaha yuhibbul muhsinin, and it is said in Surah An-Nisa. It's also said in Surah Al-Imran, and that emphasizes that ihsan is such a big part of Islam. Now, the second part of ihsan, which is betterment. I told you, I have emphasized on this a lot, that how to make some good deed even more better. That is like, if we are praying salah, okay? One person is, just looking down at the ground and daydreaming 50% or something like that. But he didn't do any mistake. And he did everything correctly in the correct way. He didn't break his wudu. But he was not paying attention. He was sort of like daydreaming. Then namaz will be in sort of a way accepted, because he has done everything correct. But if somebody, yes, he prays the namaz, does the same thing, and does it even in a better way, he's attentive, and he, of course, plans it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is the first thing to do. And then when he recites al-qira, he recites everything, he recites his makharij even better. He recites ta like ta, he recites sa like sa, he recites seen like seen, he recites sod like sod, he recites dod like dod, and he keeps all the makharij in contact and pronounces them in a correct way. Now that is ihsan. One part of the ihsan, actually, not all ihsan is based on that. Ihsan is a very comprehensive term. That's why I didn't translate it. It is just like nasiha, a very comprehensive term. Now, the second part of ihsan, which is emphasized over here, إِذَا قَتَلْتُمْ فَأَحْسِنُوا الْقِتْلَ. Now, just doing that, let's go on to the third part very briefly. وَإِذَا زَبَحْتُمْ فَأَحْسِنُوا ذِبْحَهُ وَلْيُحِدَّ أَحَدُكُمْ شَفْرَتَهُ وَلْيُرِحْ ذَبِيحَتَهُ. That, mercy to animals. When we are slaughtering some animal, we have to be merciful to it. How in that way? It is said that, how to let the animal die comfortably. It is been saying, وَلْيُحِدَّ أَحَدُكُمْ شَفْرَتَهُ, and let him sharpen his knife. But now it is again said not to sharpen the knife in front of the animal. It is in another hadith that the Prophet Muhammad seen a person sharpening a knife and about to slaughter a goat, and he was sharpening it in front of the goat. The Prophet Muhammad said, do not scare it. Now, in Islam, mercy on animals have been emphasized a lot, as we've seen before in فَإِذَا قَتَلْتُمْ فَأَحْسِنُوا الْقِتْلَ. Now, if you see, and now even the animals which we slaughter to eat, that over there, when we are slaughtering them, we are also going to have mercy on them. And when we keep those animals, we have to help them in every cause. Like if we see over here, this hadith is narrated in the Sahihain, which is, it's narrated in Sahihain, which is Sahih Bukhari and Sahih Muslim. Now, what is this hadith? We know, and this is a very popular hadith, I'm sure all of you might have heard of it. A man was very suffering from atsh, which is thirst, when he was traveling on a long journey. Then we went to the well. Since there was no rope in it, he climbed and drank it for a long time. He climbed down, literally climbed down into the well. When he came up, he seen a dog, which was, licking the ground because he was too thirsty. Then the man said, this dog was as thirsty as I was. Then he went down to the well, took his shoe, took the water, and then gave it some to the dog so he can also quench his thirst. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgave all his sins. Then the Prophet Muhammad told the story of a woman who tied a cat until it died, and it was starving, so it couldn't eat the vermin of the earth. And that's how she went into Jahannam, she went into the hellfire. So it also tells us to emphasize on the mercy of animals. And again, it is another hadith, and this is again about the mercy of animals, to keep mercy on animals, to be merciful on animals, and to treat them very well. فَدَخَلَ حَائِطٌ, and he entered a garden from the Ansar. He went over there, he in Medina he was there. So this is not the complete version, but he went into a garden from the Ansar. And then when a camel saw him, it started to weep, and it literally wept, and tears started flowing from his eyes. Then the Prophet Muhammad said that, for who is this camel? Whose camel is this? Liman hadha al-jamal. Then a young man from Ansar came and he said, this is my camel. And then the Prophet Muhammad said, and this is very important, don't you fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This camel has complained to me that you keep it hungry and you overload it and keep it more tired and exhausted. And this again tells us that how it is very important to keep mercy, to be merciful, to keep mercy on animals. And it tells us how to be merciful on animals. And again, وَلْيُرِحْ زَبِيحَتَهُ, and let the animal die comfortably. And you do not, shoot it or stun it on the head in the club. And it also says that cut it from its neck, cut the nerves of pain, so it does not feel any pain. And of course, the animal is about to end its life on this world, so let it die comfortably. Let it have comfort in its last moments. Lastly, let me go on to the third part of ihsan. The third part of ihsan is correctness, how to correct something. Which I said is as better as excellence. It's just the same as excellence. To make something, to pray everything, to do everything. In case, for example, salah, we are doing it correctly. We are correcting everything, and we are not doing it in any bad thing. We are correcting it. We know what is the way of salah. We are doing ablution, and then after that we do salah. We do wudu, then salah. And we do everything in the proper order. So if you see, we have today talked about in this hadith the components of ihsan. There are three components of ihsan, which is, we've seen over here, excellence, sincerity, and correctness. We have seen about these three components, and then we have also seen how Islam emphasizes about the ways in fighting to mercy on humans, mercy on animals, and we have learned a lot of things from this hadith. Now let's go on to the next hadith, which I recited, which was narrated by Abi Dharr Jundub ibn Junada and Abi Abdurrahman Muaz ibn Jabal. And we remember that we know Abi Dharr Jundub ibn Junada, he was a very famous Sahabi. He was, at that time he was one of the scholars, and he was, very, early to accept Islam. In fact, he was the 5th person to accept Islam, which is a shocker. And at that time, after, in the reign of Usman ibn Affan radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he was exiled, and he went in exile into Syria, and there he died in a quiet and peaceful life. And it chanced that Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu ta'ala anhu was over there, and he led his funeral prayer. Now, let's go on to Abi Abdurrahman Muaz ibn Jabal. Now, Muaz ibn Jabal radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he was also a very famous Sahabi, but he lived a very brief life. He lived only 34 years old, and he was born 17 years before the Hijrah, and he died 17 years after the Hijrah, which is, to combine it, that equals 34 years old. He died when he was only 34 years old. Now, this is narrated that Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Ittaqillah haythuma kunt." Fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wherever you are, and do all good deeds. وَأَتْبِعِ السَّيِّئَةَ الْحَسَنَةَ تَمْحُهَا وَخَالِقِ النَّاسَ بِخُلُقٍ حَسَنٍ, and treat people with good akhlaq, in a good manner, with good character. And this also tells that character is very important. This is narrated by Tirmidhi, and it says that this is a genuine hadith, and it is in some nusakh, some fashions, in some other versions, it is said Hasanun Sahih, good and genuine. Now, let's go ahead to this hadith. Now, if you see that over here, we see a very important thing in this hadith. That is to have taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is a very important thing, but let me explain it in the most briefest manner ever. Now we see this comes in its own ways, and every Sahabi, they have their own explanation of it. Like Abu Huraira radiallahu ta'ala anhu says, walking on a thorny path and trying your best to be not pricked by the thorns. This is just like this. The sins in this worldly life, in this pomp, play and amusement, it is very easily accessible. But we try to avoid. We avoid the sins, and this is a form of taqwa. And then there have been by many other Sahabi different interpretations of taqwa. And I mean taqwa is it is translated as God consciousness. So we should fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, be aware that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is there. He will instruct us on the day of judgment. Now, وَأَتْبِعِ السَّيِّئَةَ الْحَسَنَةَ تَمْحُهَا, and do the good deed. This also refers to, doing something which is good. Like I've told the compulsory things, to doing the compulsory things, and also doing the light things if you want to get more reward. And this is again telling, we have also seen another hadith, kullu salama min an-nasi alayhi sadaqa. And then after that it goes on, helping somebody is sadaqa. Good deeds. It's telling us this good deed. Every step you walk towards the masjid is sadaqa. And of course, ikhlas is also a type of good deed. So all these things will count for us. This will resurrect us. We'll be resurrected on the day of judgment for these things. This will, it will be against us on that day, or be in the khair for us. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us Jannah. Now, coming to the last part of this hadith. This tells us to treat people with a good type of manner. Anyway, we're running short of time. It's a bit brief, but I will tell it in a brief manner. I'm going to tell it briefly. But this is a very important thing. We have already seen the hadith, لا تغضب فردد مرارا قال لا تغضب. So it tells us not to get angry. Treat the people with a good way. Just like فَلْيُكْرِمْ ضَيْفَهُ فَلْيُكْرِمْ جَارَهُ. This again tells us those hadiths which we have learned before. This tells us about how to love somebody else, how to protect him. And then those 4 hadiths which Imam Abi Zaid told us, that was a shocking. And this was all talking about this hadith. This all refers. وَخَالِقِ النَّاسَ بِخُلْقٍ حَسَنٍ. It means that we should treat people with good sincerity, with good akhlaq, with good character, and treat them in a good way, in a good manner. And we should treat our neighbors well, we should treat our guests well, we should treat everybody well, and we should not harm them in any way. وَخَالِقِ النَّاسَ بِخُلُقٍ حَسَنٍ. This tells us how this hadith is important. So we're running short of time, and I really wish that I can talk with you in a discussion, and inshallah wait for the next hadith to come. We will have another hearty discussion about it. So today, in today's program of Payari Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam ki Payari Batain, we discussed about some things which is an eye-opener. We talked about, these programs which were an eye-opener, and these hadiths which were an eye-opener, which was, of course, in the first half, we talked about ihsan, the concept of ihsan, the parts of ihsan, and the ways of ihsan. Then after that, we talked about taqwa, and then how it is so emphasized, أُوصِيكُمْ بِتَقْوَى اللَّهِ عَزَّ وَجَلَّ. And then it's again about how to treat people in good manners, and how to do something with excellence, how to do good deeds a lot. So this is what we talked about in this program. So this is all for today, and inshallah I'll meet you in the next program. I pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, اللهم اجعلنا من السابقين، اللهم اجعلنا من المحسنين، اللهم اجعلنا من القانتين، اللهم اجعلنا من المتصدقين. ربنا اتمم لنا نورنا واغفر لنا إنك على كل شيء قدير. ربنا لا تجعلنا فتنة للذين كفروا واغفر لنا ربنا إنك أنت العزيز الحكيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.